Richard Petton spotted the maid's son in the marble lobby and sneered. "What's this street rat doing here? This floor isn't for janitors, brats." The boy clutched his backpack tighter. Petton didn't stop. He shoved the strap off the chair, scattering notebooks across the floor. "Pick up your trash, kid. People like you don't belong here." Everyone stared. Nobody spoke. The boy, no older than 12, wore a faded blue jacket with sleeves too long and sneakers that had seen better days. His braids were tied back with a rubber band, his backpack patched in 3 places. He bent down, quietly collecting his scattered notebooks and a library book that had slid across the marble tiles. His small hands trembled, but his eyes didn't waver. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He simply kept stacking the books, as if each page was a piece of dignity he refused to leave behind. Petton pressed the elevator button, smoothed his tie, and strode inside, satisfied. Just another inconvenience dealt with. Another reminder of where people like that belonged. But what Richard Petton didn't know? 8 hours later, that same boy would be the only one in the room who could save his billion-dollar deal. And his career. The lobby slowly returned to its rhythm. Phones buzzed. Shoes clicked against marble. Yet the silence that followed Petton's words lingered, like a shadow no one dared acknowledge. The boy zipped up his backpack, pulled it against his chest, and sat back down, smaller in the chair now, but not defeated, because sometimes the ones we push to the edges are the very ones destiny drags to the center. Before we dive deeper into this powerful story, let me ask you, from which country are you watching and what time is it right now? Drop your answer in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoy stories like this, please hit the subscribe button so you never miss the next one. 3 hours later, the tension in the 32nd floor boardroom was already thick enough to choke on. Papers lay scattered across the glossy oak table. Contracts, market projections, partnership equity structures. Every figure, every clause pointed to one thing: a deal that could push the company's valuation past $1 billion. Richard Petton stood at the head of the table, polished and commanding like a king surveying his throne room. His executives filled the seats, each one cautious, rehearsed, unwilling to step out of line. The only sound was the soft ticking of the clock above the door. The door opened. Too early, Mr. Nakamura stepped inside. Mid-50s, impeccably dressed, with an expression carved from discipline. He carried no entourage, just a slim leather briefcase. A ripple of unease moved through the room. Catherine Whitmore, the lead negotiator, stood quickly. "Mr. Nakamura," she said, forcing a smile. "We're honored. Please have a seat. Our interpreter will be here any minute." But Nakamura did not sit. His sharp eyes scanned the room, lingering on the executives one by one. Then he pulled out his phone, typed rapidly, and turned the screen toward her. "I am deaf. Where is the JSL interpreter?" A silence fell that no one dared to break. Catherine froze, her hand still half extended. Petton's jaw flexed, annoyed. This was not how it was supposed to go. "She'll be here," Catherine stammered. Just a slight delay. Nakamura's expression didn't change. He placed his phone on the table, folded his hands, and waited. It was then that Petton laughed. A sharp, dismissive sound that bounced off the glass walls. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "We flew a billionaire across the ocean and forgot we need a babysitter to translate?" Unbelievable. A few executives shifted uncomfortably. One coughed. Nobody spoke. Petton leaned closer, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Mr. Nakamura, with all due respect, maybe we don't need to wait. Numbers speak louder than words, don't they? My team can walk you through projections without all the hand-waving." He smirked, making a vague, mocking gesture with his hands, a cruel imitation of sign language. A cold stillness swept the room. Catherine's cheeks burned. One of the junior executives dropped his pen, but nobody challenged Petton, not yet. Nakamura's face remained unreadable, but his eyes had hardened, sharp as glass. He reached for his phone again, typed slowly this time, and turned it once more. Respect matters more than numbers. Petton's smirk faltered, just for a second. Then he straightened, brushing it off. "We'll see about that." The meeting limped forward in fragments of awkward silence, tension mounting with every tick of the clock. Nakamura said nothing more, his patience visibly thinning. Peyton's arrogance filled the vacuum like smoke, choking the room, and down in the lobby, the maid's son was still sitting quietly, unaware that fate was already pulling him toward this very table. The meeting was collapsing. Numbers had been presented, charts displayed, but every attempt to impress Mr. Nakamura had failed. He sat in silence, his unreadable expression like a wall no one could climb. The absence of an interpreter hung over the boardroom like a storm cloud, and with every passing minute, the billion-dollar deal bled further away. Richard Peyton's frustration had turned to open mockery. "This is pointless," he muttered, slamming a file shut. "We're wasting time on someone who doesn't even—" The door creaked. Heads turned. It was only the maid's son, standing nervously with a tray of fresh water. His sneakers squeaked faintly against the polished floor. Peyton shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Not now. Leave it." But the boy didn't move. His eyes had locked on Mr. Nakamura, who was watching him in return with a flicker of curiosity. Then, before anyone could stop him, the boy carefully set the tray down and raised his hands. His fingers moved with confidence. Smooth, precise shapes filled the silence. Japanese Sign Language. For the first time that morning, Nakamura's face softened. His stern composure cracked into something warmer. Recognition. He responded, his hands flowing in practiced signs. A stunned silence swallowed the boardroom. Executives exchanged bewildered looks. Catherine's jaw dropped. Even Peyton froze, his arrogance curdling into disbelief. The boy translated smoothly, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Nakamura says, respect is the foundation of trust. If you cannot respect me, we cannot do business." A murmur ran through the room. The executives shifted in their seats. Shame painted across their faces. The boy continued, hands moving, words flowing. "He says, but if this company values true partnership, then perhaps we may continue." The tension broke like shattered glass. Relief swept over Catherine, who immediately leaned forward with gratitude. Yes, of course. We value respect above all." Peyton's face burned red, but he stayed silent, trapped in his own arrogance. For the first time, he wasn't in control. At that table, in the space of mere minutes, the balance of power had shifted. Not because of wealth or titles, but because a boy no one valued had given a voice to the deal. And Nakamura knew exactly who in the room he could trust. The boardroom, once stiff with arrogance, now leaned in a new direction. Every eye that had dismissed the boy just minutes ago now followed his hands as though they carried the weight of gold. Mr. Nakamura signed again, slower this time, his gaze fixed firmly on the boy. The boy nodded respectfully and translated, "He says, I did not come here to see numbers on a screen. I came to see character in action." The words struck deeper than any profit projection. Executives fidgeted nervously, realizing how hollow their earlier arrogance must have looked. Catherine felt both proud and ashamed. Proud that the boy had the courage to step in, ashamed that they had nearly lost everything by ignoring him. Nakamura leaned back, then signed a question. "Why did you help me?" The boy's voice was soft as he translated his own answer. "Because my mother taught me respect doesn't cost anything, but it can change everything." The room fell silent again, but this time the silence was reverent. Nakamura's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, his first all day. He tapped the table lightly, then signed once more. "He says this company is fortunate, not because of its money, but because of its people, especially the ones it overlooks." Catherine blinked back emotion. The message was clear, the deal was alive again, but not thanks to Peyton's bluster or the executive's charts. It was because of a boy no one thought mattered. Peyton shifted uncomfortably, his earlier insults echoing in his own mind. The power he wielded with arrogance had vanished. Nakamura wasn't looking at him anymore. He was looking at the boy, and for the first time in that towering glass boardroom, it was obvious who truly held the future of the billion-dollar deal. The room seemed to hold its breath. The towering glass windows reflected the city skyline, but all anyone could focus on was the boy, the maid's son, standing at the head of the billion-dollar table like he belonged there all along. Mr. Nakamura tapped his fingers gently on the polished wood. His face, calm but unreadable, turned toward Catherine. Then he signed something deliberate, with a gravity that made even the most seasoned executives lean forward. The boy translated, his voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside him. He says, "I have seen your numbers. I have heard your promises. But today I have seen something more important. Respect, humility, and truth." The executive stiffened. Peyton's jaw clenched, knowing the next words could determine everything. The boy continued. He says, "This deal will go forward, but not because of projections or profit margins. It will go forward because of character. Because when others stayed silent, one person stepped forward." Catherine exhaled in relief, though her eyes brimmed with gratitude toward the boy. Nakamura's gaze shifted once again to the young teenager, his expression softening. He raised his hand and signed with a small, approving nod. The boy translated quietly, almost in awe of the words himself. He says, "The future of business is not in power, but in people. Remember that." Applause broke out around the room, hesitant at first, then growing as executives realized what they had nearly lost. Catherine stood, clapping with sincerity. The boy lowered his hands, nervous but proud, his mother's teachings echoing in his heart. And then, as if fate wanted to carve the lesson deeper, Nakamura turned deliberately toward Peyton. He signed just one short sentence. The boy's voice carried it across the room like a hammer falling. He says, "Arrogance has no place in this deal." The silence afterward was cutting. Peyton's face drained of color. He knew, without a single word more, that his reign in this company was crumbling. The very boy he had insulted in the lobby now stood as the reason his billion-dollar opportunity still breathed. Catherine placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "You just saved us," she whispered. And in that moment, every suit in the room realized the truth. The janitor's son had become the quiet hero of a billion-dollar empire. The boy simply looked down at his scattered notebooks on the table, the same ones Peyton had knocked to the floor earlier. He smiled faintly, picked them up, and said, "My mom always told me, never let anyone tell you where you don't belong." And with that, the future of the company and the deal had been sealed, not by wealth, not by power, but by respect. And now I want to hear from you. If you were in that boardroom, would you have stood up for the boy or stayed silent like everyone else? Comment your answer below. Also tell me in the comments, from which country are you watching this story, and what time is it right now? If you felt this story was powerful, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next inspiring story. Because sometimes it only takes one overlooked voice to change everything.